Hello, Greens. This is Howard Schweitzer of the BMRC, and we wanted to kind of respond to the video that Warren Mosler made. And I've invited Joe Bongiovanni to join me in taking a look at that video and discussing some of the points there. And I'd like to ask Joe, because we've both watched it now, and I would like to ask Joe just what his feeling overall of it is before we get into the details. Joe?
Okay, Howard, you hear me good okay too?
Yeah.
Okay, so Howard, if I could, like my opinion of the Mosler video and the points that he's trying to present to the Greens as a reason for changing the platform of the Greens, is a matter that I have come to by a long study of modern monetary theory, and so I want to just mention that that I have that background. I been a monetary reformer for the same 40 years, I guess, that Warren Mosler's been a banker. They keep touting Mosler's experience as a banker for 40 years. For monetary reform, what kind of a background is that? But my point is that when modern monetary theory, no, even before that, with Warren Mosler's soft currency economics, and it drew my attention. And so over the course of the time, actually, while modern monetary theory was codenamed, for what it is, I was still reading, everything I could read and watching everything that I could watch. And finally, in 2010, 12 years ago now plus, in April of 2010, the MMT called their first kind of national gathering at George Washington University in Washington, and I was able to attend that, Howard. I live fairly close by, and I was able to attend that. And I had been following, all the kind of various MMT websites, including like Bill Mitchell's and Warren Mosler's and the new economics perspectives and all of those things that were going on. So I was participating in the discussion, learning more, a little bit more, and a little bit more, and a little bit more. But the difference between where I was at the time I made my first, or not my first video, but the video that I made after attending that, it was called the MMT's Fiscal Sustainability Teach-In, a counter conference to the Peterson Group's announcement that austerity was going to be necessary. Absolutely, austerity was going to be necessary because our public debt was growing at an unsustainable pace. Okay, now, of course, everybody knows, everybody that's going to watch this, anybody who has a green gene in them, is going to watch this, and I think know that the Peterson Group is just the financialistas, the creditocracies, think tank, and all they want to do is continue to enslave the population. So it was great that MMT was having this counter conference, I felt, so I was glad to be there, listen to all the speakers, and it was everybody, Warren and Stephanie and Bill Mitchell and
Randall.
What's his name? Auerbach, Marshall Auerbach, I forget who else. But anyway, the point is, if you watch that video, what you'll see is my position, even at that time, was just that, well, MMT seems to be trying to say that they want to do the same kind of things that we want to do, but they just want to do it in a different way. And that if we really understood that different way, well, then we'd realize we wouldn't have to go through all this trouble to do it, because all we need to do is, I guess, kind of look through the lens, and get the picture that's different from the money system that I studied for the last 40 years. So with that, Howard, this is what I'm going to say. Between that first video that I made, which was more than 11 or 12 years ago, and today, MMT has pretty much dissolved into 100% of, what I call bullshit, okay? Which is the only thing I think maybe I could get away with saying here. But it's just deeper and deeper and deeper. Confusion, deeper and deeper. Non-answers to questions, non-questions that get non-answered very well. Hyperbole, anecdote, things that just get created out of the clear blue sky and brought down and presented, like in Warren's first slide. You know, it's Europeans in Africa, taking away the sovereignty of the African nation, whichever one it is, telling them you got to do this and that, or otherwise, you know, we're gonna, I don't know, run you out of your house. You know what I mean? It's like the coercion of a super bully against a nation that didn't or doesn't have the same outlook for what should be exported from a certain country. It's so outrageous as a presentation to the Greens as to here's something that we need to do and think about so that we can figure out how to run this country. You know, and later on he gets a question about reparations. And, you know, to me, to try to square, you know, what he had to think, his thought process going through about reparations was, and square it with where he started with the countries that are ruling the world, you know, the Europeans at the time, you know, it's just in a way, no wonder that the poor, and I'm saying this poor, you know, what I would call intellectual poverty on money, okay, that the whole world suffers under because we don't teach it in schools and we don't teach it anywhere. And I got to learn it from my dad. And I will tell you that right now, an apprenticeship is the best way to try to learn about money, because you got so much of that bullshit coming down in this video that is just unbelievable. So I wanted to kind of present that background, and just in case I may sound, I don't know, more than passionate, maybe outraged and unthinking, maybe at times it seems like, but I'm actually thinking, and having been thinking about it a lot. I am so pleased and proud to have been able to hook up with yourself and Sue Peters from the Green Party of New York to take on the MMT protagonists that were trying to change the Green Party's platform back in 2018. I think it was. I think it was 2018, and to blow them away with the truth, the plain and simple truth about what is in the platform and why it's in the platform, and instead of that, we're gonna hear a bunch of what do I want to call it? You know, a bunch of
confusory is what I call
it. Okay, confusory, more confusing.
Cano speak in defense of usury.
Yeah, there you go. So anyway, Howard, that's by way of introduction, that's me and where I'm coming from. And let's talk about Warren Mosler's. Let's talk about it both in terms of the general application of as his introduction to the Green Party, ostensibly, and then in terms of the specifics of these questions and slides. Over.
Right. As Joe mentioned, MMT made an effort to change our platform, and Joe Firestone was the main MMT proponent making the argument. So apparently Warren Mosler, since Joe Firestone didn't convince the Greens to change or get rid of monetary reform, I guess he thought the big dog needed to try to do it.
Yeah. Hey, Howard, I want to debate that big dog on all of this stuff. Yeah. I am trying. I would love to. I hope that this gets back again through that Real Progressives, the Real Progressives, website and blog to whoever's in charge to let Warren Mosler know that he can put down the only real opposition to MMT today, which is coming from the monetary reformers and including among the monetary reformers, the Green Party's monetary reformers, of which I'm glad to have been a contributor. I want to debate Warren Mosler on the question, public versus private money. Yeah, that's the only question that we have, Howard. Who
Our main,
creates and issues the money?
that's our main point. And that's the whole point of the greening the dollar.
Exactly.
And yeah, that MMT has gotten so popular, it's just crazy. I recently saw a thing written by a college professor, and he was talking about, he would tell the kids how the banking system worked, and they wouldn't believe him because their economics professors were telling them it wasn't true, that banks didn't create money. And so that's right there at the college level. People
Yeah, exactly.
informed properly.
Exactly.
I think it's because the banks fund universities.
Yeah,
That's their money.
they definitely do. You know, I got to speak at the money and banking class at the Virginia Tech a couple of years ago. And I, at one point while I was talking, and I said something about, well, so the whole issue becomes down to, you know, who creates the money and who issues the money. And then I said, and I'm pretty, because it was the money and banking class, you know, I said, I'm sure that everybody in this class knows where money comes from.
Yeah.
Right. And like the whole class just went dead silent, Howard.
Right.
I mean, these were advanced money and banking students. And when I just raised the elementary question that ought to be, you know, the first thing they teach you, where does the money come from? Only one person nodded, you know, and everybody else just sat there. So I didn't want to pursue that, you know. I did with the professor afterwards, you know. I said, how do you guys do this, you know?
I know.
But anyway, but he was a good guy because he let me come in and talk to them. So
yeah, that's good. He probably throws his hands up some too. But was he the economics professor?
No, he was a money and banking professor.
Money and banking.
Yeah, he was a professor of money and banking. He didn't teach any economics course. It was at Nick Tiedemann's school. You know, Tiedemann's teaches economics there.
All right.
Yeah, and so anyway, that's how I kind of got to go in there.
And
But it's like it kind of makes me wonder. You know, Warren Mosler is always saying, Howard, oh, if I talk to the top staff people at the Treasury and the Fed, and they all agree with me. He keeps saying, Howard, you know, they all agree with me. And I keep saying to myself,
I would like to.
I would like to talk to one of those guys, you know, about that. Why doesn't Warren bring? In fact, if I ever get to debate him, I will indefinitely invite him to bring his supporting staff from the Fed and Treasury along with him to back him up or not.
At least a letter, you know.
Or at least a letter.
Got
yeah,
no
right.
evidence whatsoever of
Right.
what he claims.
Right.
So let's see about sharing my screen here and taking a look at this video that he made for the Greens. MMT and Greens. So, and the
So the next one is, no, it doesn't want to change up.
that's Warren talking, trying to
Something
figure out
that
how to work his
when I'm
thing.
worse than
Oops,
sleeping.
sorry.
No caffeine, the Mudwater rest plan combined.
Oh man, I got to figure out how to pause the whole pause our thing. I don't know how to get through these commercials.
Why does it want to change? Okay,
Here we go.
so let me get it.
All right, here's his first thing. And I thought it was strange because, like you had mentioned, his example of that he's going to use for purposes of analysis is an example of monetary warfare.
Right. Exactly. Monetary warfare.
And
like we had in the revolution.
and so he's saying that our system that we have now is monetary warfare on us all. You know, it seems like it is.
and I'm in favor of the status quo, says Warren Mosler.
Which is monetary war on the people and the planet.
Yeah.
So I don't get that.
Yeah. So Howard, if you know, like here's my read of that. When I started to read it, the British wanted to force the domestic population, and I'm going to have to add this, to a country in Africa, okay, of a country in Africa to
Yep.
grow coffee. The British wanted to force the population of a country in Africa to grow coffee. And they needed to use monetary warfare to accomplish it. So he's going to explain to us that this is all we have to do if we want to understand the monetary system. So I should let him, the British created a script, you know, just a ticket,
Yeah.
and imposed a hut tax on all the dwellings payable in that script. Now remember,
Yeah.
this is not only another nation, it's on another continent, okay? And it's a whole absolutely 180 degrees opposite culture of this population, this domestic population. And what's going to be okay for the monetary system of the Greens to understand is that we're going to impose a tax from outside the country, from outside the continent, from up there where the British are, on the dwellings in this other country that's payable in that means of paying the tax. And then if if the tax wasn't paid, the huts were burned, Howard, okay?
Right.
Okay, the domestic population was being forced, and if compatible with what I thought they were being forced to do, we destroyed their housing. And the only way that what you could earn to pay the hut tax is to work at the coffee plantation. Now, Howard, how frickin' warped could you be,
Right.
to present this as an example for purpose of analysis of what? Of how bad the Europeans treated the Africans using monetary warfare, or what? That's my question.
He's showing it was more economical than going in with the military and trying to enslave them and force them to work.
Exactly.
This
Exactly.
what Dante said, an extraordinarily efficient form of violence by which you do the most damage with the least effort.
There you go. There you go. And here we are today, facing everything that we're facing today, everything that we're forced to achieve through the economy and through the monetary economy, as we know, with modern monetary theory way of seeing things.
Yeah.
I don't understand why Mosler's doing this kind of a thing does not isolate him further from the post-Keynesians, who were the ones that he convinced about modern monetary theory, Howard. Okay, you know, I managed to sneak into the chat room, okay, of the post-Keynesians. It was their chat room, and Mosler was basically like running the school, you know.
Yeah.
And he was wowing them with reserve ads, and reserve drains are the most important thing in the monetary economy because it changes how money is goes from the government, to bonds, to the people. It was like, really, to me, pathetic. Okay.
Yeah.
Because the
post-powered money, wasn't he?
yeah. Oh, that was another thing, the high-powered money. Okay, like my dad told me so long ago, there's no such thing as high-powered money.
No.
Okay, there's no such thing as high-powered money. But he says they say this is high-powered money because, like for instance, they say Federal Reserve notes are high-powered money. Okay, currency notes, because they can be changed into reserves.
Yeah.
Okay. Now there's not a person out here, Howard. There's not a person that's a member of the Green Party of your state or my state or this country that gives a shit about changing currency into reserves. Nobody. Okay. So what the hell is this guy doing? Convincing these post-Keynesian economists that his way of life as a 40-year banker extraordinaire, and my hat's off to him being a banker extraordinaire. So what? But the post-Keynesians bought it. You know, they're the ones who brought him the employer of last resort notions, all of which have been post-Keynesian, all of the decent ideas that are covered under modern monetary theory umbrella. All the good ideas came from the post-Keynesians who picked up on the lies that Warren Mosler was telling them day after day after day, and it became their sort of their platform. But they don't have a platform because they don't even have anything really. They don't have an office or a website. There's lots of websites, but there's no official MMT website. Because if there was, then Warren and I would be having a debate there.
Yeah, right. Well, here's the next slide. The MMT money story, he calls this. And yet there's no money mentioned.
Right. Let's see. Yeah, you're right. The MMT money story is that there's no money in the MMT money story. And as a matter of fact, Howard, I have said, and I definitely continue to believe this, that MMT is modern banking theory. It has nothing really to do with money. It has to do with two things: banking, and then fiscal administration. You know, okay. But in terms of money,
Do the right thing.
oh, right.
As if.
The state desires to provision itself. Now, remember this. Remember that this is a story that doesn't have a beginning. I'm saying the money story. It doesn't have a beginning because it's happening all day, every day, all week, every week, and all year, every year, and it just keeps on moving forward. So when the state desires to provision itself, okay, the state is developing, the state is the government, you know, is developing its budgeting process, okay? And it has come up with its ideas about what kind of programs want to be funded by the budgeting process. Now, those programs is what Warren calls to provision itself. And the state imposes a tax liability. The tax liability is way preceding the state's desire to provision itself. The tax offices, internal revenue offices within the Treasury have a tax code and have a tax rate for all kinds of income that's there. So it's already there, right? The state doesn't impose it. It's already there. And it's just a means by which the state, that terrible creature, the state, the government, that terrible creature of the government, needs to have money in order to buy the things that it needs, just like you and me, Howard.
Yeah.
State needs to have money to buy the stuff that's in its budget, just like you and I need to have the money, and in our case, the income, to pay for the things that we have in our budget. There's no difference, okay? So, but the state is the issuer of, in theory, the state is the issuer of the money, okay? The state has the power to issue the money, but it doesn't issue the money at all. It just turned the power to issue the money over to the private bankers. And the private bankers, including Warren Mosler in his 40 years of service to that sector, just continued to create all the money that went into circulation. So the fact that the state imposes a tax liability and later on to say that the tax liability creates sellers of goods and services seeking the state's currency, the goods and services seeking the state's currency, the tax credit in exchange. He's trying to make believe, Howard. He's trying to translate the actual purchasing power of money when the banks put it into circulation into a tax credit, something that the government can use. Only the government can use the tax credit. So if the banks create all the money, okay, and they create $20 trillion, And if the government's budget, I'm just saying, is $5 trillion, what happens to the other $15 trillion of tax credits? Howard, where are they?
Yeah,
That's what I want to know. I want to know where them other 15
yeah.
trillion dollars
Into
are.
the accounts of the wealthy.
Yeah, yeah. And so then look, he says, the state buys the goods and services it desires. Well, the state has budgeted. And in the budget, it has budgeted for incomes. And under incomes, it has taxation. And besides taxation, when you get to a deficit of what you want to spend, we have to borrow it. Okay, we have to borrow it.
Yeah, we
Then
bought-
he says taxes can then be paid. He says taxes can then be paid after the state buys the goods and services.
Right. Here's another point I think on this thing that drives me crazy is the state desires to provision itself as if it had an anthropomorphic character
Right.
to itself. You know, I mean, the state needs to provision itself. Desires, I'm not sure I'd put it that way. And you know, goods and services, again, it desires.
Right.
As if it were, and yeah.
So Howard, here's the thing about this, and this is why I really fault MMT right across the board. Okay, they're always holding up, you know, the people whose shoulders they're crawling upon, and they bring out some good people, Howard. You know, I mean, Hyman Minsky and Wynne Godley. In this case, Wynne Godley. Why Wynne Godley? Because Wynne Godley was the stocks and flows guy. Okay, he was the guy who said everything that's going on through the economy is a movement of account money or accounts. Okay, from a stock to a flow to another stock, and the stocks we would what we would consider to be bookkeeping accounts. You know, bookkeeping accounts. So what his point was, everything must come from somewhere.
Right.
And everything must go somewhere. Okay, that's what stocks and flows are all about. Okay, so where does Warren Mosler come in here? You know, still standing there with Wynne Godley looking over his shoulder, and I wish he was. You know, to say that the state doesn't have to have the money in order to spend it on the goods and services that it desires. No, the state doesn't have to have that.
Money or anything. How do you buy anything if you have no money?
Yeah.
You know, so he's really putting this illogical notion in people's head.
The lens, when they say the lens, you go back to the White Rabbit, you know, song, when logic and proportion have fallen, okay, and far from this head, that's what you have to have. You have to get the lens, you got to get the logic, and you got to get the proportion, and you got to get it out of there, and now you can really learn what's going on, you know. and this is it right here. This is it right here.
Get rid of all your critical thought capabilities.
I can't believe that the MMTers, to be honest with you, Howard, are not any more critical than they are of what's going on here.
Yeah.
Anyway, I'm sorry, I'm not meant to criticize MMT here. I mean the Greens here. I'm here to criticize modern monetary theory. What else does he have besides Howard? This great money story.
Yeah.
You know, this is such a great picture right here with Warren Mosler up there in the corner, and you know, the MMT money story. This is really a money story, all right. This is the money story that should never be told.
I'm going to do the green money story.
Yeah, be the truth.
Yeah. Let's see. Here's his next slide. He had 5 slides in this presentation, and this is the next one. The currency is a public monopoly. Now that one always rubs me so wrong because in a way it's true, because the public prints the currency and mints the coin currency, which is the physical currency, just a representative of money. And it is all sold to the banks.
Right.
For their customers' use,
Right,
for their cash needs, whatever they may be.
right.
So this is the only place he mentions monopoly too. And this is not really a monopoly. Not really. You know, it's not, at least not in the terms of which traditionally people have talked about monopolies and their power and control. And of course, that's
Howard,
we're up
yeah.
against a lot of them.
Right, exactly, exactly. But you know what, let me explain like the issue, the matter that comes to me by this, the title of this slide.
Uh-huh.
He says the currency is a public monopoly, okay? Well, the monetary system is a private monopoly, okay?
Right.
So how could we have currency that's a public monopoly? And the answer is we don't, but the key is to remember that what we're talking about, what the Green Party platform is about, what monetary reform is about, is the monetary system that Warren claims like he's the only person on the planet who really understands. But I will promise you this, under the money statutes of this country, currency is a subset of money,
Yeah.
okay? Currency is only a subset of money, and it's only in regards, to be honest with you, about legal tender, about what's legal tender. That's really the substance of the currency section of the money statutes.
Yeah.
So rather than teach people about the real structure of the money system, and to me, you'd have to do that.
Which is a private monopoly, like you say.
Right. It is a private monopoly. I mean, it's a money in a way has to be a monopoly because you can only have one form of money, to run a national economy. So it's going to be a monopoly. So who's going to do it? Well, the public could be doing it, Howard.
And the public
could be doing it.
That's right, and should be.
And should be, and will be someday if we can win out and if we can hold back these bullshit lies that come out of people like Warren Mosler,
Yeah.
Day after day after day, and get drunk down with the Kool-Aid by the Real Progressive channel. They really know nothing, Howard, at all about how the monetary system works.
And they don't know
And
history.
Steve Grumbine, if you're listening, any of you or any of the people you ever have on your program, I will be glad to debate them about any of this.
We definitely would be happy to. Yes. And this is, yeah.
Yeah, dude, so if you understand the rest of this, because this is kind of funny, taken by itself, the currency is a public monopoly. No, it's not. Currency itself is again a subset of the money system. So if we're talking about the money system, why does currency come into play? The currency is just it's a public monopoly. Well, it's a public monopoly, like you said, because the Bureau of Engraving and Printing gives us the currency notes that we use, but it gives that the right to print them. We don't circulate them and pay for goods with them. If we did, it would be part of our monopoly. But we give them to the banks, and the banks issue them into circulation for their banks and their customers, and they benefit from that, not the public. So it's like these plays on words, and then without any, I don't know, connection, if you will, to that statement, the funds to pay taxes come from the state. Now, Howard, have you paid your taxes? Okay, you don't have to tell me, Howard. You don't have to tell me.
The state gives me a little money, but it goes to other things. I can not my taxes. I have income to pay taxes with.
Okay, so you have income to pay taxes with. Well, let's see. This says the funds to pay taxes come from the state. So you're saying not in your case.
Yeah, well, some of my income comes from the state, I suppose, in the form of Social Security. But for most of my life, it was income from work that I did for other people that gave me income to pay my taxes.
Howard,
in the state.
Unless you pay your taxes in cash, none of the money that you pay your taxes with comes from the state.
Yeah, and I doubt they would even accept cash.
I think they have heightened the restrictions, limiting the ability to pay taxes in cash. I know that that's true, but I don't know that it's fully prohibited, but it's clearly been tightened. But the point is that the funds,
I suppose could
the funds, no matter if you get them from Social Security or not, come from the private banks, okay? Come from the private banks. Either the state taxed me to pay your Social Security or taxed you to pay my Social Security. That don't matter. Where the funds came from is the private banks created them and put them into circulation. That's what matters. So to say the funds to pay the taxes come from the state is another freaking lie. It's another freaking lie. It's never been true.
Yeah.
Okay, Greens. Okay, Green Party. What the state spending precedes the payment of taxes. Now they would go back to Win Godley again, Howard. Okay, back to the heterodox economist, I'm sorry, not neo. No, I'm sorry, about post-Keynesian economist, and so it says spending precedes the payment of taxes and the purchase of state securities. That's really interesting because the payment of taxes, a flow of taxation, a natural thing to occur in a sovereign state to empower itself. It says, and the purchase of state security bond. So really, if it's that, it should be the sale of the state security bonds. The state has to pay it, and the people who are going to buy the securities have to get it so that they can buy the securities. How do they get the money from the state? How does the money flow from the
state?
Yeah, exactly. So no one. So state spending is state spending of private money.
Private.
Is the point. Okay, that's the point. It's the state spending of private money, and yeah, that does go. That private money goes to buy the debt instruments that the state needs because it doesn't have the power to create and issue the money, Howard. That's the problem.
The only reason why they say this, the currency is a public monopoly, is because they're trying to make everything about the government and ignore the bankers and ignore the monopoly, ignore the monetary warfare upon us. And it's just really disgusting in my
Exactly. Let's see, tax liabilities are the cause of unemployment. Okay, there's one that's like, Steve Grumbine, you want to explain that to me? The price level is a function of prices paid by the state when spent. Now, this is like the most uneconomic statement that I've ever heard made, and it's impossible for it to be founded upon any reality.
No,
the price level is set in the market. We're a free market economy. We're a competing theory.
Selling the stuff set the prices.
The people that are selling the stuff set the prices. A function of the prices paid by the state. Paid by the state when it's spent. Like the state says, you know what? When we're going to with the state now, this would be now let's say the Department of Defense. Okay. Now, are they going to say how much they're going to pay for the F-15 or the F-35A? They're going to say how much. Or is Northrop Grumman going to say how much they're going to pay? It's going to be the free marketeers,
right?
Okay, that are going to say what the price is for the things that the government. I mean, it's like when he said, "Where's the guy from Treasury that wants to come down and explain to us how the Treasury sets these prices for the things that it buys?" Is there going to be anybody to do that, Howard? I don't think so.
They'll never bring anybody from the Treasury or the Fed because they know it's a big lie, and that's why they won't debate you, because they've got no evidence.
No evidence. Evidence-free. We call it evidence-free philosophy, but still, it's not a monetary theory. It's a banking theory.
That's right.
Okay. Well, let's see. What else did he have to say?
Thing is because they're using this to throw a blanket on monetary reform.
Right, exactly.
So let's see, next slide. Let's go see where that one is. Oh yeah, this is the diagram. Oh man, well, we gotta let everybody hear his description of this. I mean, if they hadn't, I mean, this is really absurd.
Sure, go ahead if you want to play that, Howard.
See if I can get to the beginning of it here.
So a little diagram. We've got the government at top, which could be the British. It's the thing with the taxing authority or its agents that have taxing authority. Okay. There's the economy down there. And you say what's flowing up to the government are goods and services. What's flowing down to the economy are US dollars. That's the sequence. The next sequence is they pay taxes, and those might as well be thrown into the garbage because it doesn't have any value to the government. They just want the goods and services, which they get because you have a tax liability, you need their money, you go to work for it, they pay you. They could trust you to throw it in the garbage instead of paying it to them, fine, but they can't trust you. Or at least they can't trust me, they can probably trust all of you. And so they collect taxes, but they don't have any use for them. And if you actually pay your taxes in actual cash, if you're a waiter and you've earned a few $1,000s tips and you've got it in old $20 bills and pay your taxes with it, the government will give you a receipt, say thank you very much, then they'll send it off to the shredder, and somebody will shred the money. You can buy bags of shredded money in Washington. Now, nobody else does that except the government. If you pay,
it's really hard to listen to. It's that it's tax money that gets shredded, not old worn out bills. And he's trying to make that claim that it's the tax money that's been shredded, and that the tax money goes into a garbage can that the government, because the government doesn't need those taxes, despite the fact that there's plenty of records that tax money goes into the general fund and is spent by the government. But he won't take a look at that evidence or provide any of that.
Or
That if he debated you, you would.
oh yeah. Oh, the thing is that the Treasury, the United States Treasury, that's who the government is up there. Okay.
Right.
Every day, because they're responsible to the people whose tax money they receive, every day, excuse me, they publish their reports of every dollar that they receive from where, okay, that is to say from their sources of either revenue or income, okay? They say every dollar that they receive during the year, they report it, and every dollar that they have spent, okay, which is like this is the money that they've spent, down into the economy, okay? That every dollar of that is reported by the Treasury in their annual fiscal report. Every dollar, Howard. And
Right.
it's sworn to by the highest officers of the Department of the Treasury,
Right.
okay? And it's audited completely. And so it contradicts 100%. Either they're all liars at the Treasury, either they're all liars and their auditors are liars. And I'm not saying that couldn't happen, Howard. Okay, but I'm just saying that the reports are there. Says where the money comes from, and it ain't what Warren Mosler says where the money goes, and it ain't what Warren Mosler says. And I can promise you that not a plug nickel of your taxation goes into the garbage can. And he gets away with repeating this lie for all of these years. Howard, I want to know if you can write it right about here. Put in a link to the video that I made back in, I forget what year, but maybe like 2013 or something like that, or 14. And it says the first deadly innocent fraud is Warren Mosler's. And I explain exactly, because I get to the government, I go to the Treasury, and I go to the Internal Revenue Service, and I get their procedures for handling cash tax payments. Howard says exactly what has to be done with them. They exactly have to go where there's nothing over here that tells it the Treasury general account has to be over here somewhere, and those tax payments have to go into the Treasury's general account. 100%. And the penalties for not doing it, Howard, are serious. Okay, serious. Years in jail, $10,000 fines, whatever. So the point is, how come Warren Mosler gets come in here, even all these years after I made my video about what a lie this all is, and he gets to tell it again because Steve Grumbine is ignorant about it, okay? And the real progressives is ignorant about it. And it seems like nobody over here in the government is paying any attention to what Warren Mosler is saying, which is why I want to have a debate with him and let him bring whoever he wants from the Treasury over.
Yeah. Well, let's hear the rest of what he's saying here.
I think with old 20s, I don't send it to the shredder, but the government does. Okay, it's in a very different position. Now, over at the Fed, what's going on there? The government spends more money than gets used to pay taxes. That's called the government deficit. They might spend, 8 trillion and only 4 trillion gets used to pay taxes. The other 4 trillion, where is it? Well, it's in the economy, and it's being held at the Fed for people in the economy in 3 forms: cash, reserves, and securities. The Fed can change the mix of all those, but they don't change the total. The total is the difference between the dollars the government spent and how many were used to pay taxes, okay? And all the dollars that the government has spent that haven't been used to pay taxes sit in that little warehouse called the Fed. And that is, it's not wrong to call that the money supply in the economy, the net money supply in the economy. And that's the money supply that supports all the business activity in the economy, all the cash in your pocket, all the reserves for insurance companies and savings and pension funds. That's where all the net financial assets in the economy are as savings.
I thought it was interesting that he doesn't mention securities, which is on his thing, but he doesn't mention securities. And I wonder if it's because people know that that means borrowing.
Yeah, well, in this case, he's trying to reflect that the government's debt, okay, which are what those securities are being held at the Fed. Now, he's trying to imply that the actual process of issuing debt and recording the issuance of the debt and who has it, who's getting paid interest, etc., all of that stuff, which is just an accounting process at the Fed, which is true. It's just the record of it that's at the Fed. Okay, there's no money there. Okay,
Right.
There's no money there at all. Okay, so for him to say it represents the money supply, well, the money supply from the security, Howard, I'm going to put my finger on the security. Okay, the money supply from the security, as soon as it's issued, goes up to the government. Okay, and the government is what's spending the money supply that comes from the securities down into the economy. So he's like leaving out what really happens. He's leaving out what really happens, and he's creating a whole bunch of stuff that don't work.
Right.
And why? And this is what always gets me, Howard. Like you mentioned about he talks about, he doesn't want to talk about the banks in terms of the private sector, in terms of its power over the government. Okay, he doesn't want to talk about that, and he wants to make the government something. And MMT does this throughout, something that separates the people from their government. MMT is a philosophy of separating people from their government. He tells the people, Warren Mosler, and now all the post-Keynesian followers of Warren Mosler and all of the Green Party followers of the post-Keynesian ideas, he tells them that the government doesn't need the money that they pay in taxes in order to carry on its spending. He tells them that. So I'm a person who I'm pretty much in your category in the sense that I'm on Social Security as well and fixed income. But when I paid my taxes, they went into the Treasury General account, just like the fiscal reports say every year. Okay, my tax money is included in what goes into the government, and the government cannot pay this money out right here. Okay, the dollar US money going downstream without having it first upstream. And I go back to Win Godley again, Howard. Okay, money has to come from somewhere, go through the process of spending, a transaction, Howard, transactions. Okay, and then end up in the economy. That's how it all has to work. But first, they have to have the money to spend it. And nobody at Treasury is going to ever say anything different. And as a matter of fact, even after Mosler like convinced Ray to write his Understanding Money book, and et cetera, et cetera. Later on, they came out and admitted it. They did. They came out and admitted it, and it was in the writings, later writings of Ray and I'm forgetting his name, but they co-authored some papers on the topic that are available from the Levy Institute, Levy Economics Institute, if people want to go there, in which they admit that, but they say that it's just a, I don't know, what do you want to call it, a colloquialism or something like that, to say that they don't need the money first. And this has been attacked significantly and very well by Jeff Eaters from the Canadian Progressive Money outlet.
Yeah.
So the truth is getting out there, and the question is, what does the Green Party want more than the proof that's already out there and that we already have? There's nothing here. There's nothing there with modern monetary theory. There's zero there. More public debt is the only thing that they have to offer. And this guy right here is a fixed income securities, or he was, specialist. And so for him, the idea of creating more of those net financial assets so that they could be traded by traders of fixed income securities, it's like a con game here, Howard. To me, it's like a con game. I'm going to con all these people into thinking that there's something here, but there's nothing here.
Yeah, there's no there.
There's no there.
Let's see. Did he have another slide? Oh yeah, he had the only slide that had anything truthful on it.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. That's right. This slide here, personal consumption expenditure. I mean, yeah, this is actually a really good slide, Howard. Because it shows what happened when COVID hit, and how we have slowly recovered with regard to our expenditures. But what's not really showing there is the amount of debt that it has taken to get us up there, because we haven't had the income to make those expenditures. A lot of the income got killed on that downward slide, and coming up, everybody expanded their credit limits and et cetera, and borrowed, sold a bunch of the goods that they had accumulated in their backyards, et cetera. But it is a good slide because it proves the lie that government spending and even the monetary policies that enriched the wealthy, were not responsible for the inflation that was caused by purchasing too many goods and services, because these are the consumption expenditures, and they have not done anything except carried on a straight line, throughout this period. So MMT is right about this. MMT is right about this, that the claim that the monetary policy measures and et cetera are causing the inflation is not true at all. And what's causing the inflation is the ability of the monopolists to control the price of the goods. As Confucius say, in confusion, there is profit. And the bankers and the owners are sitting on the sideline, carrying on the big game. There's a big game playing out there, and as George Carlin said, and you ain't in it.
The more confusion they can create, the better.
Right, exactly. Confusion is their currency.
Yeah. Yeah.
So what else anything else there, Howard?
So, well, we looked at the questions. Now, I wish that, I had a little bit better handle on how to manipulate all this stuff so that I could pause us and find where we want to talk about.
Yeah. Yeah, well, Howard, if you want, we could make this video number one.
Oh, yeah.
Well, how long is it right now?
Let me look and see if there's, how do I find out? I wonder.
Well, I'm just saying that what we've covered is his presentation materials,
Yeah,
and that could be I just think that it's gone on for a good while, and we could say number one, and then let's get into either the Q&A or his written thing with regard to the Greens. I think maybe the written thing would be better because the Q&A showed a lot of misinformation.
yeah. A lot of misinformation, and one of the things that got me too was when he went off on the Green Party talking about how we didn't have environmental policy or something like that. And we weren't addressing the big.
Oh yeah. Right.
It's like, wow, man, you haven't read our platform.
He wants the Greens to have a different policy than the other two parties, Howard.
Yeah, right.
And how could anybody have anything more different than the other two parties than what the Green Party has, and especially its monetary plank?
That's right. They don't have anything like that.
Yeah.
So anyway, I hope the Greens get something from this, and we're going to do some more to address some of the things that Warren
and Howard, Howard, let's invite people to participate in this discussion right here. And get on here, and anything that you think that we're saying that's wrong, criticize us for it. Okay, anything that you think we're saying is right, thank us for it, and keep the discussion going, because we have to keep the discussion going, Howard.
Yeah. All right.
Okay, Howard.
Greens on board. All right.